Everybody. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to What is Fabrizio Inking? Gonna be doing some Horace H. Hoover pages today. Nothing too special. Just gotta get some actual pages issue 4 done. So any questions, comments, let me know. I'm just gonna kind of put in some music and see what happens. Not that. Alrighty. A little bit of spoilers on this, but you know, not that much. I've already been introduced to the characters, and once you see dialogue, it's kind of, you don't know exactly what's happened. I'm not going to show any images of somebody jumping off a bridge or something to really spoil it. But if you have any questions, let me know. If you don't mind spoilers, I guess I don't mind. And yes, I'm drawing once again the House of Books. What complete moron came up with this idea, because I would have to draw 1,000 books over and over and over. I've tried to sort of simplify the book house of books, but it doesn't always work. You know, if you try to simplify it like you would a regular house, it just doesn't look right, which is unfortunate. Because then I really do have to draw virtually every book. I can fudge things, I can be pretty loose, but still has to have structure. So inking is one of those things where I usually just put on a TV show or a podcast and I just ink. It's a pretty, I don't know, it's like you get into like a trance and you just ink. My pencils aren't super like tight pencils, but they are tight enough where I feel comfortable to kind of experiment and go loose sometimes. So, and when I'm penciling, it's a totally different feel, because figuring out the panel layouts, character design, making sure everybody looks good, that is without a doubt the most work in comics is penciling. I would say it's no contest. On the off chance you can't hear me, let me know. I'm constantly moving my computer and my mic and everything, so let me know. So what I do with these book houses is I'll do a little bit and then I'll jump, because it really becomes so repetitious, repetitive, that I kind of go nuts. So I'll do a few books here and I'll jump over to character, back and forth. So this is the Book Bug, which was introduced in issue 2. So basically he has a bunch of books sort of tied to himself, along with pages of books. So he really is completely covered in occult books and sort of esoteric scrolls and tomes and magical things. Let's see, am I reading anything? Did I buy anything comic-wise? Not really, since last week. I did see that they're releasing a Transformers compendium, the original Marvel Transformers, a compendium similar to the G.I. Joe compendium that I got, and I'm definitely going to get that. I love the paper. It's, sometimes reading a graphic novel, a compilation of more than a couple of issues can kind of be a pain in the butt because it's hard to turn the pages, you're breaking the spine. It's just not necessarily a very pleasant experience. So the way these compendiums are produced is just really nice. Like it's really nice newsprint. It's not newsprint like. It is legitimately newsprint, so the colors and just the texture of the page feels right. And plus, if they were thicker pages, you couldn't have a 1,000-page compendium. It would be insane. So, out of necessity, they use newsprint, I'm sure. I think the word newsprint's abused a little bit. Like any thin paper, basically, people call newsprint. That's really not the case, but it's a real specific thing. But one thing about the book bug, now that I've been drawing him for he's been in every issue since issue 2, is you get a shorthand for the character, and it becomes kind of enjoyable, much more enjoyable to draw once you figure the shorthand out for a character. This is a pretty small drawing, and the fact that, his face, for me, is absolutely the book bug, with only a few lines, so it's pretty economical. It's still really descriptive. I think that's when drawing comics in particular gets pretty fun. Then you really just focus on the story and not laboring over every single shot. Obviously, with your main protagonist, you get there pretty quick, just because that's who you're really sketching, and trying to figure out all of the really small details. But, for example, if the book bug comes back in another issue or two, then I already have all of that nailed down. I don't think you can really do that in the concepting stage either. Shorthand really just kind of emerges from drawing so many images. I don't think you can, you can't really shortcut that. You can get the character down, all the detail, you know, what character might look like in any given situation, but shorthand is pretty, it's real specific. It's just based on repetition. Dan the Man. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. When do you know to stop? Stop putting detail in? I mean, that is a good question. At this point, I've done, you know, over 130 pages, something like that. And I know that when you shrink this down, you're not, like if I went in and gave him more detail, like wrinkle lines or anything like that, if you shrink it down, it's not only are you not going to see it, I think that's the best case scenario is you don't see it. The worst case scenario is it actually turns everything gray and it actually makes it harder to tell what's going on. So it kind of comes down to what can you get away with, and what do you think is going to actually be seen and not muddy the actual character. Like for Horace, he has certain identifiable parts that I just have to have, which are his pouches, we'll say. But, you know, these pouches or these pouches are very different. So it's just, I mean, I will say this, if you're working digitally, it's a lot harder. If you're working, you know, I'm using a brush, so I can only go so far anyway. So it's sort of like an analog limit. Like even if I wanted to go further, I couldn't if I wanted to. So that kind of helps. Digital, you really run into an issue because you can zoom in and zoom in and zoom in until your heart's content, and put like 1,000 little details that will never be seen. And like I said, that's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is it just makes everything gray and harder to read. So again, I'm gonna just jump around a bit. And here's another example of me basically not getting bored, but as soon as you start to have to repeat yourself, I do a few of them and then I jump around. So for stuff like hair, or clouds or anything like that, you might unintentionally just do the same stroke when you don't want that. Like you really want randomization to some degree. So sitting with that particular image too long, all of a sudden you did the same stroke 10 times and now it looks like a pattern, and that's going to be a problem. Here's an even smaller image of the book bug. I will say this, the one thing that I think is an easier thing to think about is, like, what would have been gray should probably be black at this scale. So, I don't have an example here, but the sides of these books, I would normally actually kind of draw in some of the pages, so you can see that they're actually pages of a book, something like this. I won't do this for every book, but I'll do it for some. But for something this small, I'll just black out that side. I think that would be too much. Too much gray, and you really just want to convey the pose, show that there are books on him. And some of this will be fixed with the color, but man, you really don't want to rely on the color, because, well, for me, I'm doing the coloring, so it's like, okay, why make my job harder coloring when I can try to get as much done in the inking. John's Long Box, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. It's nap time. John's Lockbox, which is Lockbox, jeez, Longbox, which is currently crowdfunding issue 2 of Heroic Tales. Check that out. It's on Fund My Comic. It's a fun old school, but I say old school, but I know for some people that means different things. It's a classic superhero fare in a good way. Kind of like Horace H. Hoover is classic man wearing vacuum cleaner on his head. It's the age-old, it's the age-old story of a man who wears a vacuum cleaner on his head and has some friends, Max and Slurp. It is nap time. Yeah, I feel the nap time every time I'm about to start streaming. I'm like, this is the worst day of the worst time to be streaming, because like I really could fall asleep at any moment. But if I don't do it, then I'll never do it. I do like that the book bug really, it looks like he has pomade. I don't explain exactly where he would get pomade living underneath a library, but unless he's using like saliva. Maybe he's heating up glue that binds books together, and he's making his own custom book bug pomade. You do the appliance on the head trope in a new way. Thank you. I like to give it a little bit of a twist. So much better than Blender Face or Microwave Visage. Yeah, those are 90s comics, right? I think. You just have to add the word blood in the title. Like Blood Blender Face or something. This is my favorite part to shadow on a character. As far as why, I've thought about that. I mean, granted, sometimes they look like little mustaches. I won't get into that. But it's, I think, mainly because it immediately pushes the nose forward in space. So as soon as you have a shadow, like whatever's above that is just going to kind of pop out. So like the nose over the lip like that, really, it's satisfying to see that. Dorothy Dryer, Dorothy Parker. So I started writing a new Horace H. Hoover story using the game emulator, Mythic Game Emulator. I've talked about this before. I don't know how many people heard of it. I had heard of it regarding solo role-playing, and I came across somebody who said, well, I kind of use it for writing as well. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So anyway, it kind of, I'm not going to get into the game again, but the game emulator again, but it has a bunch of prompts and some charts, and you roll some dice. It's a lot of you writing, but they're at just the right moments. It introduces some randomization, which is kind of fun. So I started writing this story a couple days ago, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I never really have problems writing, but this was like the best parts of writing and playing the game at the same time. Really cool. So I think I might, we'll see what I do with that story. It's not going to be released anytime soon. I was thinking maybe even write it as a prose fiction story with Horace H. Hoover. I don't know, we'll see. But I will share at some point in time. It is a bit of, you know, to actually get the game emulator and to learn it and to use it, you know, it takes some time. But if that's your kind of thing, and I don't know, I feel like I've been writing for a while now, and I just wanted something a little different to just in the process. And then what I'll do is, and you're not writing a full story, so you're not doing, you know, dialogue necessarily or anything like that. You're really coming up with an outline of a story. And then you go back and refine it, change it, do whatever. But anyway, highly recommended for people that are either into role-playing games, people that are want to write, just kind of having fun. So it's like a cross between writing and playing a role-playing game. That is some slick pomade there, Book Bug. There's a Instagram page that I follow called Patrick's Rare Books. Really cool stuff. And there was a book, actually it was a Bible. I can't remember the kind of Bible or the name of it, but it was really old, and I mean it even had like a clasp, leather, like really worn down, but it had illustrations, engravings I should say, and the engravings were, I'm not joking, they looked right out of The Ninth Gate, which is one of my favorite movies, hands down. But the style of the engraving, everything about that was The Ninth Gate. So I was really considering buying it just to have access to those engravings. I don't have anything like that. I don't own anything even remotely that old for books. I think it'd just be a cool, I don't know, it's a cool thing to have around, you know, especially the kind of stories I like to read and write. Gives you inspiration, kind of lends sort of atmosphere and all that jazz. Although I will say that the things that lend kind of cool atmosphere are also the things that whenever you're dead and people are going through your stuff will make you look like a crazy person, without a doubt. There's no getting around that. If it's cool while you're alive, it instantly becomes creepy when you're dead. My wife made the thumbnail for Post-Tentious. She said you won't let your books on the shelf express their personalities. So me and John are doing a show called Post-Tentious. We're beyond pretentious. We're post-tentious. We did our first episode Thursday. It was a lot of fun. We did Sebastian O, which I'll talk about in a second. But so there's a thumbnail. John's like, hey, I need an image of you being pretentious. Little did he know I already had a bunch of these photos, but I have a bookshelf and my books are turned around, so it's spines are towards the back, and they're stacked as well in like sort of geometric patterns, very similar to something like the House of Books, right? It's how you would stack books that are different sizes and widths. So apparently it does bother people that the books are backwards, and there wasn't too much thought in it. I was unpacking my books one move we had. This was years ago. It was quite a while ago. Anyway, we moved into this new place. I have a lot of books, and the idea of taking them out of, I probably have, 14 totes of books, maybe more, countless totes of books, not comics, actual books, and they are heavy and they're a pain in the butt. So I'm done moving. I have totes after totes of books to unpack and put on some bookshelves. And I just grab handfuls and I throw them on the bookshelf. And I'm like, they're not going to be in order. They're not going to be by author. Am I going to take the time to do that? There's no way with all these books. So I'm like, you know what? And they're different colors. So red spines and all sorts of different colors. I'm like, I bet it's kind of like killing two birds with one stone. If I put the spines to the back, then it'll be like this varying colors of white and yellow, depending on the age of the book, and I won't have to alphabetize them or really look at them again, because these are already books that I read, so I don't really reference books that I've read once or twice in my life, but not often. So that just became the default way for me to stack my books. But whenever people see them, I don't think anybody's liked it. We'll say that. It's weird, it's obnoxious. I remember this one guy, he was the husband of a friend of mine. Never really liked him, but anyway. He came in, he saw the books, he's like, oh, that's really cool. Did you see them on Pinterest? And I'm like, no. But as if the only way that you could ever think to do anything is because you saw it on Pinterest, and now that's some interior decoration, approach. I thought that was so obnoxious, but whatever. Yeah. Now, admittedly, some of the books, I think the fact that they are turned around is probably a good thing. I've read some books that are, I'm not going to say controversial. Okay, they're pretty controversial. And I don't really want to have the discussion with people when they come to my house. Oh my God, you read X, or I can't believe, do you think this? No, I just read the book, okay? It doesn't mean I agree with everything in the book. It just means nothing other than I didn't know something, so I wanted to read the book, and I did. So I recommend putting your books backwards. It looks pretty cool. Anyway, I'm sorry. Post-tentious. So, yeah, we're going to take a look at sort of obscure, rare comics and go over them. And the first book was Sebastian O. That is John's recommendation. Without a doubt, he has 50,000 comics. So I'm not going to have anywhere near the obscure, rare comics that he has. So I'll need to pick them up. But it's interesting. There's a lot of comics I've never even heard about. And some that, maybe I heard them, maybe I read them, but I haven't looked at them in 20 years or 30 years. So it's going to be pretty fun. Did you read an Al Franken book? No. I've never read an Al Franken book. But I've read, no, I'm not going to get into the books I've read. I've read a lot of different things, we'll say. That's all I'm going to say. But people, if they come in and they see the Communist Manifesto or Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal, or whatever, it's going to be hard for them to imagine spending time reading something that you don't agree with just so you learn about it. Am I bragging? I don't mean to brag. I'm just saying I like a lot of different stuff, and some people have a hard time really understanding that. So, in order to avoid those very awkward conversations, put your books on backwards. I can also imagine, like, you have some dinner guests over, and you're cooking. They're just kind of wandering around the house. You're having a conversation. They're looking at your bookshelf, because that's what I do. I absolutely look at your bookshelves and judge people based on their books. But on the way home, it's like the conversation. Did you see on Fabrizio's bookshelf? He was reading X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, ugh, I can see that happening. And then me and Stacy are sitting alone in our apartment. We're like, huh. We used to have guests. People used to come over. They used to hang out, and for some reason, was it the lasagna? Did they not like my cooking? I can't imagine why people just come over once and they never come back. So, hey Justin, how's it going? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. You are being postages. Yeah, I don't. You can ask. You can ask people I went to grade school with. I'm just, I'm not trying to be pretentious. I will say this. Okay, in my defense, I have. I'll have Dostoevsky and Edmund Burke, and then I'll have Calvin and Hobbes and something else, or comics or whatever, although comics don't show up on the bookshelf. But anyway, the point being, like, I do find value in all of that stuff. So I don't, I'm not saying that you have to read X, Y, or Z. There's so much really great information in all that stuff. Although, I don't know about Beetle Bailey. I'm thinking Beetle Bailey is the exception. I don't think there's any good information. No, I'm just kidding. I used to love Beetle Bailey. In fact, Beetle Bailey was, from what I remember as a young child, I think Beetle Bailey was the first thing I ever started to draw. That I remember, obviously. I was pretty young, but yeah, I remember trying to draw Beetle Bailey. Alrighty, let's get back to some exciting books. It's not a spoiler, but there are certain things that you want to convey whenever you're writing or doing a comic that kind of is a bummer when you don't get to it. Whether it's world building or maybe it's a personality trait or something. And you're like, darn it, I really wanted to throw that little thing in there because it just adds, I don't know, it just adds one other layer of either realism or fantasy, and one of the first ideas I had for the Book Bug and sort of his layers, because he's underneath the library, and he doesn't have just one house. Like, if you look in the drawings, there's other little, like, outposts and little, there's a tower and all this kind of stuff. And there's a bridge made of books. So I thought it was cool if he named everything based on sort of the books that were used to build it. So it's like if you go down the path of Don Quixote over the bridge of Dante, I thought that was kind of a cool little thing. And I never got to add it into the first two issues because it didn't make any sense. But I have a little bit of that little, like, extra world building in issue 4. And it just shows that, I don't know, there's a lot more thought, and also referencing real books and real authors instead of always fake sort of occult books. Just adds another level to it. Justin, I used to sleep like Andy Caps on my couch when I was very young. Andy Caps. If that's a Beetle Bailey reference, then I'm completely lost, because outside of drawing it as a kid, I can't even remember anything about it. Andy Caps. I don't know if that's... sorry, I don't know what that reference is. So each of these books could be fun to do a little, not a inventory of the books or anything like that, but something. And if you don't know Horace H. Hoover, the book bug basically lives under this library. And he got left there as a child for breaking some rules by his race. And he basically lives underneath this library and steals books, or stole books, I should say, one by one, and built this like little mini town underneath the library. And he has other reasons for doing it, and he understands the goings on in the library, so he essentially keeps a watch on certain kinds of books and certain knowledge that some people are looking into. One of the inspirations was Phantom of the Opera. It's one of my favorite books, and this, when I was originally I just love the idea of the Phantom living in the opera house, and I'm like, I wish I could do something like that for a library. And then that just kind of set me on the path. And it's kind of cool because it's obviously not Phantom of the Opera, but all you need sometimes is I love if you abstract it a little bit, I love the concept of somebody living, hidden in a house or a library, an opera house, an apartment building, whatever the case may be. And then you just kind of go from there, and a lot of it is essentially logical conclusion. So you just take an idea as far as you can take it, and then that'll get you to the end sometimes. Sometimes it won't, but... Hey, DC Miller, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. Andy Cap or Pogo, which is the most unfunny comic strip? I've laughed more at Kathy. I'm totally lost with these comic strips. I'm sorry. That is not my subject of expertise at all. Hey, Psychotronic. Squirt Gun, how's it going? Thank you. Justin, it was its own comic strip. He would lay on the couch curled up with his front facing the backing of the couch. Did you do that because you saw it, or was this natural? I used to, oddly, I don't know if anybody knows or remembers Mork from Mork. Classic sitcom, Robin Williams. He used to sit on the couch, like upside down. That's how I used to sit on my couch as well, which was very weird. I did it for far too long. It's actually comfortable if you don't immediately hurt yourself. And anybody over 30 in the chat, I definitely recommend not doing it. But if you're young and spry and bendy. Yeah, check out Mork from Work and sit like that. It can be, yeah, pretty comfortable. Night Phoenix Press. This looks great. Thank you. Justin, it was natural. It's comforting for some reason. Yeah, like the Mork from Work thing. Now, I don't think I did it because of Mork. I could have though, but I think once I did it, it just became my thing. I'm like, hey, I like this. Alrighty. That's a lot of books. Let's kind of jump back up here. See if we can finish off Horace a little bit. Nanu. And then, of course, Jonathan Winters. This is really deep cuts, but, I mean, people have Google. Jonathan Winters cracked me up. So the tubing here on Horace is, I mean, you'll see me do it here, but it's an odd way how I do it. I have yet to come up with a better way to do it, but because the tube really has to follow in perspective, and if you really deviate, it looks bad. So I put those original lines just to make sure that the perspective is actually moving with the contour lines, or the direction of the tube. So you essentially put those contour lines so I don't get lost. And then I start blacking things out. If I go directly to sort of the dark part of it, I have a hard time kind of retroactively adding the little dots. So So I will just kind of go in, start blacking it out. So I only really leave like a few spots, like highlights, because I kind of want to make sure it looks, at least evokes, because this is not a realistic rendering, evokes like a hard plastic with highlights on it. Then I'll kind of go into each of those little segments, put a little dab. You too can ink your own plastic vacuum hose. So some of the other comics that we're going to be looking at on Post-Tentious, on John Longbox's channel, we were talking about looking at Concrete, Cerebus, I think he mentioned other ones. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm currently making my way through the G.I. Joe compendium, which is 1,100 pages. It's taking some time. The one really interesting thing about this compendium is, I would say G.I. Joe is as indicative of like 80s Marvel as you can get. It's Larry Hama. It really is. It's got the story structure, the pacing. It's not doing anything different than any other comic. So from issue 1, I actually started to time how long it takes me to read an issue. And in my head, I thought, I think this will take 20 minutes. And that was just sort of off the cuff. It was just a guess. But in my head, I'm like, I feel like a real comic, an old comic that I like, with the amount of dialogue, with the number of panels, will take about 20 minutes. So I started timing them, and I'm not joking. They're almost exactly 20 minutes every time. Every single time. It's really incredible. I think one was 18 minutes, but yeah, 18, 19, 20 minutes every single time. There's zero deviation so far, which is really interesting because that's pure intuition on their end. They're trying to pack as much story as they can, but there's no way you can really know it's going to take 20 minutes. That just comes from writing book after book after book. Anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know if I actually timed Horace H. Hoover. I feel like I did for the first issue. It was a little shorter, maybe 16 minutes, something like that. And then they get longer, mainly because I'm doing more panels, more dialogue. I'm getting into some background, some stories within stories, stuff like that. But I should go through and time them, just out of curiosity. Alrighty. So are there any other easy things that I can sort of tackle? So this horse is pretty small, so I don't really get into the hose too much. The only way I would put a dab of white potentially is if the background was dark and I needed to bump it forward, but outside of that, it's so small. Alright, so we'll do this one again. So this is a good example of, there is hair behind him, so it's not solid black, but it's pretty dark. So I'm not gonna go nearly as dark with this as I would. I'll just do a core shadow basically. Night Phoenix Press, Eon paper. You doing it big? Yeah, Eon is my go-to for inking. I I spent a long time trying out every single type of paper, weight, everything. And unfortunately, it's a dream come true for inking with a brush. It really is. Like I can't imagine using anything else besides Eon with a brush. But it's not great for penciling, so that's why I'm inking on Blue Line, because I actually pencil on Strathmore 200, and then I Blue Line on the Eon board because I like it so much. Yeah, if I was inking with something else, it might be a little different. But with a brush, these plate, this is a 100-pound plate, is so smooth. It's not to go on about it, but man, it is a dream to ink on this stuff. And when I found it, I ordered probably 10 sets or 10 packs because I didn't want to run out. I am that weird artist who like found a material and is hoarding it. That's me. If I had to ink on Strathmore 200, I don't know if I would use a brush, honestly. Might be using a pen at that point, like a Micron, or I don't know. All right, I'm getting to the point where I usually set it aside, come back to it later on. I have a few packs left. Yeah, they do run sales once in a great while. If they have a sale, I pick up a bunch. And you need the 100-pound paper because the 100, I think it's 130. I don't think it's 160. The other plate size they have, if you put that through your printer, it'll work for a while and then it'll destroy your printer, which is what happened to mine. That thick paper over and over and over again. It's just thick enough to where it starts to push some things that it's not supposed to. So since then I've been using 100-pound on a brand new printer and no issues so far. Alrighty, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. That's how I got mine during the sale. Yeah, I take advantage of sales. I don't want to say I'm stingy, but when you know there's going to be a sale, I'll wait. So I don't know about other cities. Pittsburgh, like the comic book shops here, I don't know what it is, but they tend to have sales in April or the spring. So some of them are really good sales, and I'll just wait. It kind of sucks, you know, to wait that long when you're looking for something, but if you can get half off a back issue, that's a lot. So, you know, I'll just hang out, I'll make a list, and then when the time comes, I'll get all the books that I've been looking at for for the past 6 months or whatever. Alrighty, I think I'm good. So it won't take too much longer to finish this out, to be honest. Probably another half hour, and I should be able to finish this up. So I usually like stop around an hour. Oh man, well thanks everybody. I appreciate everybody popping in. This was kind of a nice Sunday afternoon. I got a lot done. I will be streaming all of the pages from the book, so if you're interested in checking out, Horace H. Hoover issue 4 before the issue comes out, check out the streams, because I'll be exclusively streaming those as much as I can. But anyway, thanks again everybody. I appreciate it, and have a good Sunday.